Okay, I'm leaving VR and I'm entering the real reality. Hi, how are you? I will give you a short introduction on what I want to talk about today because I don't know if you know what we're doing. Some of you, of course, are the people I recognize, but I see new people. So let me just give you a short intro of what I'm doing, who I am, and what what we've been doing in Film Spring Oven for some time now. What I will show you now is the evolution of the tool, which has its roots somewhere in Film Spring Open in the past. But let's start from the beginning. I'll be switching between different presentations and between YouTube, so it will be a slightly chaotic, just be warned. And I wanted to illustrate what I will be talking about. The topic is that I needed to add in the parentheses without AI, because soon, thanks to AI, you will be able to do all that faster and in a more efficient manner. But so far, I will show you how you create VR experience and AR experience in a traditional way, because I will also show you examples of AR. So virtual reality and augmented reality, and I will show you what we came up with to make this workflow more efficient and what it looks like now. We've been talking about this a year ago a bit. A year ago we also made a simple experiment which shows how all this works. And now we're finishing the preparation of a 2.0 version. I put on my timer just to know when to stop talking. If you have any questions, shoot them immediately. No sense to wait for Q&A. If something is interesting for you and you would like to know more, just let me know immediately. My name is Konrad Ziaja, and I've been in Film Spring since it was moved to Kraków. First I was here as a participant, and then very quickly I became a VR guy, just in a general description. In 2014, I think I made first VR tests here that were a total failure, but that was the only place at that time in Poland where I could say to somebody, I need 14 GoPro cameras, Pro 2 black, and glue them together with the sellotape and make a rig for VR. Long story short, we made these tests, then we understood why they failed, which was, I think, the most valuable of this whole experience. And in 2015, we were already doing VR movies commercially. We were selling them as a service. We produced 360 degrees movies, and by 360 degrees, I mean 316 2D. This is quite important. I will be talking about the differences between different types of VR movies in a while. We created a company in 2016 which is called CinematicVR, just because we started from movies. Quite quickly we added to that applications, fully interactive based on 3D VR engine, and AR applications, so augmented reality applications. That's me. I don't remember which year was that, but you can see here a 3D printed rig for GoPro cameras, and what you can see on my head is a GoPro rig from the 3D stereoscopic times, just like Avatar sort of was shot. But it worked very well to show in virtual reality too, because goggles also, as you can see, just like they work like our eyes do. You have two lenses, and if you put left eye view in left eye for the left eye and right eye view for the right eye, you have the stereo. You have the natural perception of the depth of view. If you do it with two cameras, that wouldn't work. But here you have two GoPro cameras, and they do stereoscopic filming. That's why I selected this picture, because we will be talking in a while about the VR 180 degrees technology, which is, according to me, in 90% of cases is much better than 360 degrees 3D. Of course, this is only to illustrate how difficult it was, but also a very satisfying times when we were starting cinematic VR. There were no cameras, as you can go to the shop right now and buy a 360 camera, even like a consumer simple camera. This was not on the market at that time. You had to disassemble GoPros. There was a lot of DIY, but this was fun. And this famous rig, everybody had to go through it if you did VR at some point. So I don't remember what was this company, the 3D printed GoPro camera rig. I think this picture is from the editing room here in 2014. One more picture of a broken GoPro camera. And this is one of my favorite pictures that I like to show, because this is virtual production before virtual production was fashionable. So Canon with a zoom. That's a stupid thing, really. Why? Because, and the controller, which is taped to VR goggles, which was this sort of sensor that would track the movement of camera. And I this was stupid, because with a zoom, it's another thing you have to calibrate. This real camera, as you know, in virtual production has to be compliant in parameters with the sensor. Well, this zoom was not out of the box lens, and the zoom was working a bit. It got decalibrated and it was a nightmare, but we did projects like that before it was fashionable. I wanted also to tell you that apart from VR and AR, we apart from typical production, we do quite a lot of in non-typical implementations, R&D. We are a team for like a special task force. If somebody needs some custom implementation with some web backend, of course, I will show that to you in a while too. That we're also doing things like that. Very quick. I'm doing very quickly because I hate talking about the metaverse. Thankfully, it died, and metaverse is not a buzzword as it was a year ago, because at some point people started to ask, are you doing metaverse? And we asked, and so what do you mean by metaverse? And quite often it occurred that they want VR or AR. Whatever you think about metaverse and whatever it will be and whether it will be and when it will be, if ever, it doesn't matter. A part of it will be some sort of imaging and showing content to the viewer in an immersive way. Right now we're talking about that this is XR, so extended reality, and this very broad bag, which is called extended reality, right now includes virtual reality and augmented reality. So sometimes when by accident I'll be talking about metaverse, I will slip word metaverse. I have only this very narrow field of AR and VR and a bit of web experience. I will show all that to you soon. For all the new people, because I can see that there are plenty of young persons in Film Spring Open who are just starting to understand or study this field. Very shortly, virtual reality are goggles, all our content, of course, that we watch on goggles, which you put on, and they cut us out from the reality outside and from the distractors, so things that draw our attention. And so it's a very good marketing tool. It used to be, because nobody does marketing on VR anymore. And it's a great tool for storytelling, like immersive storytelling, where we were to get immersed in the world. We put on the goggles and we get no distractors from the outside. And it's great for trainings. And we as a company, you have to know about that, we make a lot of training content for business clients. This is our core business right now. It is also important because the system that I will show to you in a while, we prepared it with training in thought. Augmented reality, AR, is everything that we have on smartphones. And when you launch an AR application through the camera of your smartphone, the algorithm are scanning the area in front of the camera, where we place elements which are interactive virtual ones. The so-called, like, think Pokemon Go, like a creature in 3D on the real surface which you see through the camera, or on the marker. For example, you have, let's sort of a poster. If I put my camera against this poster, if I look through the lens at this poster, if this is programmed in such a way, this content can be showed on the poster, so it doesn't take like 10 seconds to scan the surface. Immediately the application uncovers the marker and will cover the marker with our content. Mixed reality is a strange term because it actually is not in existence yet, but on the other hand, all the producers of VR goggles, some of them at least, say that they have mixed reality goggles, but it only consists in the fact that, as you can see in those in the standalone goggles, the ones that do not need a computer to cooperate with, you do not connect it with a cable. The majority, they have like cameras all around, and these cameras serve on one hand to orient yourself in the space around you, and to track it at the same time, tracking the position of the goggles in relation to this environment. But you also can use them in a pass-through mode. They can also show you into the goggles what is happening outside, and at the same time you can, to some extent, in an AR mode, in a mixed reality mode, display three-dimensional objects in the whole branch also of equipment, which is called the AR head-worn interface. But these are more like heads-up displays, which give you additional information, which are displayed into your eye, and are not a real AR they are not a real AR experience. You can Google, for example, the leading hardware was Microsoft HoloLens 2, which I think has been scrapped already. We've never done, I think we made one project on HoloLens, and of course right now Apple, you can't say that they released, but they announced their Gizmo. We can talk about it later. I don't want to babble about this because, you know, I would have a half an hour rant about this, what I hate about this Apple proposal. So, very quickly, let's go through what are the types of the VR content, and I will start to show you what we came up with to make this work better. AR applications are the most interactive and the most immersive type of content that we are able to produce. If we have a 3D model, if we have a 3D environment, it's enough to practically download SDK of the goggle manufacturer, attach it to the engine, and we have a scene rendered which is already three-dimensional, and we can move around it. If we sort of program it properly, we can use controller to pick up objects, interact with them. And we also have something that is called 6DAV. So 6 degrees of freedom, which means that in practice that we can move around freely within the frames of some borders and limits which are superimposed on us by the developer, but within also the safe limits that we set in goggles, we can move around, look under the objects, jump, and all these access are followed in real time. This is very important because this is not what you have in a film. It's a bit different. As an example of our application, I will show you a project. It is still relatively fresh. It's from the end of the last year for the Voivodeship vocational center. We made a training film in 180 degrees technology, and I will come to why it's better than 360 degrees. We did also 7 interactive applications in 3D engine. And I wanted to show you those apps. I hope I will not get a commercial. Oh, yeah. Okay, I'll be talking during the commercial. So here are the VR clips, the VR videos. If we would not be able to do this project so well if we tried to do it, or if there was an requirement to do it 360 3D. Probably it wouldn't be doable at all. We would need to shoot it in 360 2D, a bit of a weaker, more limited version. Of course, it does not have the depth perception, which is the best thing about this experience in reality. So here we're creating a sort of a video game which is launched in VR goggles, and for educational and or business training, it's a sort of a game dev, a very specific game dev, because when you're making mobile goggles application, you also have, it's just like with every mobile technology, you have to take into account the optimization of the graphics. The priority is to make it smooth and not beautiful. On the other hand, it is also in VR, if you if you do it well, if everything is smooth, this graphics does not have to be realistic to get you immersed into this world and get you engaged, because even the exploration of that such space can be fun. So, and if we add you something to do there, add something to do for you there, it is just interesting. Is this standalone? Yes, this is made for standalone. I think it's Pico 3 Pro. Is it Pico? This is Pico 4, and these goggles, because that was the requirement of the client. We won the tender, and there was a specification explicitly. They wanted Pico Neo 3 Pro. It's a bit of an older generation of the goggles. As you can see, they're very narrow. Only this white plastic band in the front are the goggles, just the hardware, and all the rest is the interface for your face. Pico 3 is the older generation. They're a bit bigger and a bit heavier. And I can tell you from the outset that Pico is a good choice because, first of all, Oculus or Meta does not practically have any B2B license for institutions and for the business clients, corporate clients, and Pico has. So you pay once and you do not pay any subscription fee. These goggles are working on a B2B license. And secondly, with Pico 3, they get an interface, a silicon interface, which you know, they work very well in some sort of some video cinema, etc. But only the sound is a bit worse than in Meta. You know what? Apart from the fact that it allows you to work with a business license, Pico has released the tools for managing the goggles, like HTC has. HTC is a competition to Oculus and Pico. They also have goggles, and they also have a system for managing the fleet of your goggles. So for distribution of updates, you know, you can look at it what different people do in those goggles. And Pico did not have that, and they just released that recently. But the most important part is that, and this is a huge problem, especially for us, that very often the clients do not realize that theoretically, I haven't seen FBI or was chasing the institution in Poland for using Oculus in improper way. But theoretically, you cannot use Oculus and Meta for business purposes if you do not have a business license, which does not exist. Right now, there is supposed to be a second attempt. Oh, by the way, because I think you have to talk to the microphone if you have questions, because we're streaming that. I just realized it. Or I will repeat your questions. So there is no business license, and because these goggles are quite cheap, and you know in tenders in Poland 100% of the parameters is the price, so quite often these are inscribed, these institutions buy this Oculus, and they are left with a sort of dubious, from the legal perspective, dubious service. But I still don't think that on the other hand, from the point of view of image, I wouldn't think Meta would persecute anybody for using Meta. But we cannot legally offer that to the clients. I don't know if we just didn't lose a tender just because of this, because we suggested Pico goggles and somebody suggested a slightly cheaper Oculus. Coming back to the types of content, you know what the film looks like. It's a medium. Well, like in the film spring, I don't need to explain to you what is film. A VR film, a VR movie, is different only in that you record it in a slightly strange, odd camera, and you have a different post-production. The post-production is more complicated. There's also a stage which is between the editing and the production, which is called stitching. And stitching consists in, you do not get the image straight from the camera with which you can already work. Usually this image cannot be watched at all, or in case of 330 camera, the camera, it's an image from several cameras, several lenses, which get combined into 360 degrees cameras, and then you have to stitch it, which means combine it into one spherical image. And it is only that, and as much as that, because this is the most difficult part and the most expensive part of VR production. And now forget about the lower row. In the VR film, we have only 3 degrees of freedom. It's 3 off. We can move your head like this, and we can roll. Which means that when the tripod was standing and where the camera was standing, from this perspective, the viewer is observing the scene. It doesn't matter. You can move around, but the image in the goggles will stay in the same spot. So now a small remark. This is true with 3DOF only in case 362D. If you have a stereo movie, which means regardless of whether it's 360 or 180, but you have 3D, you have the other eye, or you have left eye and the right eye, so to speak, then the roll is not possible, because the camera recorded this image as it recorded the image. So let's hope that the eyes of the camera were set horizontally in the right way, and if you're sitting in a normal relaxed position, you also have your eyes are horizontal, and then this movie you do have depth of field as it should be. If in VR goggles you will tilt your head, so you do this roll, your eyes will sort of get detached. Please notice that human eyes converge into the middle, but they don't work horizontally. There is no convergence horizontally, so this is very, very inconvenient. So you tilt your head. You can try this experiment, or I will try it. Maybe if you look at something in the goggles, if you have a film, because in 3D graphics, that's why you have all these axes which are possible, because it is being rendered adapting to how your head is positioned in the goggles. These cameras recalculate this. You don't have that in the film. And the opposite, if you shoot VR in a wrong way, so if you have a tilt in your camera on the z axis, then in order to have a comfort in watching these movies, you would have to also tilt your head in the same way in the VR. So this is slightly true, but only to 362D. In 363D, we have only 2 degrees of freedom, but it's still worth it, because it's much more immersive and much more interesting and much more realistic for the viewer. The last thing when it comes to content, the XR content, so to speak, are the AR applications. And here I wanted also to tell you a bit more about how you create such applications, because we're striving to make things simpler. We work a lot in the XR, like in national heritage, in national heritage area, and one of our last applications is the Teutonic Knights applications. It's actually the Teutonic Knight Fortress in Szczytno. It's a very funny, good project. We managed to win that, and the task is to recreate the spaces, or the original space in the castle, the medieval ones, and show it in augmented reality to somebody who will go there, will scan the marker, and one-to-one in this virtual world will be shown in this room what it looked like in the Middle Ages. So our best attempt to recreate it in cooperation with the curator, which is very important, and also to get that, like Pokemon, which are like these dwarfs which are running around the castle, and add one more thing. So use a CMS for creating your own virtual tours based on QR codes. It's not very frequent, and they came up with that very late, but they added this in the tender that in order to prolong the life of this application, because it would be good for, I don't know, work nicely for sometimes, and people will get bored with that. People who will come to this castle will have more fun with this. But in order to be able to introduce new content independently of the developer, and not to pay for the updates, and not to drag us to Szczytno again and again, they asked us to create a system that would generate a QR code. It would generate some sort of a title, some description in 3 or 4 languages, and they can add an MP3, they can add a movie. And thanks to that tool, they are able to put up as many QR codes as they want and create several tours and just change between them. For example, something else for St. Valentine's Day, somebody else for St. Nicholas Day, etc., etc. It's a very interesting trick, and this is something what we also suggest to our clients are the dwarves called Pofajdoki. A very, very friendly little, they're like a bit like gremlins rather. This is how we created those gremlins. I will show you an animation of one of those Pofajdoki. The Teutonic Knights. So this is I'll show it to you anyway. This is Ulrich von Jungingen. If you didn't recognize him, please. Okay, Ulrich von Jungingen was the most renowned boss of Teutonic Knights in Poland. We had like this big battle with Teutonic Knights, and we destroyed the army of Teutonic Knights as Polish people, and we killed Ulrich von Jungingen. So he was the bad boss. It was the biggest battle of the Middle Ages, and this is something we brag about for the last 700 years. Ulrich von Jungingen was the guy who. This is very funny to explain that to foreigners. But long story short, Ulrich was the bad guy's boss, and we kicked their ass, and we're extremely proud of that. So this is the animation that we prepared for this Pokemon or Pofajdak or this gnome or gremlin, which is Ulrich von Jungingen. This is actually a short document about the Battle of Tannenberg. Well, this was actually required, so this was politically correct. That was the plan. I wanted to show you that we had to do some research, because there was a bit of a pressure in this project that all the things that are recreated there, like elements of armor, of equipment, would be as coherent with the original as possible. So with the data that we have about the period, it's until 1500 that castle was not later, at least. And there is the historic curator there who's very engaged, and it occurred by chance that our 3D graphic artist is extremely bent on handheld weapons from the Middle Ages, and we had the first crossbow, like the authentic Teutonic Knights crossbow, before we signed a contract with the client. When we knew when we signed this contract, I knew I went to sign this contract. We already had a crossbow that we could sell of a stock on. As a stock photo for $500. So this is the information from the curator. But please note that the curator printed this. She sort of scrapped scrapped her comments with a pencil and sent us the scans with like 100 megabytes. The weight is 100 megabytes, but without her, we wouldn't be able to do that, because our knowledge about Middle Ages was very hazy, because let's say we played The Witcher, but and that was our knowledge. And we had to work based on archaeological data. You can see here how it was all sort of in progress. I don't want to get into all those details with all the elements that Zuzana did for us. There was plenty of that stuff. This is how screens looked, the screens from Blender look like, all those different rooms that we recreated in our AR. Unfortunately, when you launch it in AR, it's not as rich because we can't add so many shaders, and it has to be extremely tuned up when it comes to brightness, because when you work around with your phone in the daylight, you can't see anything, so it's not as pretty as it looks here. Well, it all depends on the brightness of your phone. Agatha asked if this will change, if the quality will be higher. There are two things. First of all, the calculative power of your phone, so that we can get things more realistic, more VFX, more shaders. On the other hand, you have to have a very, very bright screen to get out in full sun and look on the courtyard of this castle and look around through your phone. I think it's better to watch it now, like in the weather that we have right now, than in the middle of the summer when we prepared that. Here you have several screens of what it looks like, and now we're getting to what this lecture is actually about. On one hand, we have this fully interactive application based on 3D engine. We have a VR movie which is not interactive, just like a normal movie. You know, it's linear. You just start it, it goes from the beginning until the end. And we tried to make this workflow more efficient so that it doesn't look as if we get a brief from the client, we make a research, we build this 3D environment, we put software tools around it, we put it on goggles, we test it, we correct it, and this is being iterated millions of times, and then we send it to the client, and he said, okay, that's good, but make the logo bigger. That's like a standard situation. What does the client do? They send the goggles back to us. We unpack this application. We make the project once again. We build it on goggles. We test it, and it's going on and on and on. Also, when the client, this also works on the for example, to the things related to the warranty. If something goes wrong, or when the client wants to pay us and make an update, we have to do it in the same way. But because we are working B2B and we have a lot of customers who are using VR for training purposes in a very intensive way to train their workforce, we have a lot of feedback from them that they would like to make this process simpler. They would like those tools, the content to be more flexible for them, for them to be able to work with the content and create the content. Create the content themselves. It's not possible with such complicated productions as applications based on 3D engine, because you need to understand the 3D engine and work with it, or to create your own 3D engine, like a superstructure over this engine where the client could work with, which we also did, by the way. But every time it's like one-off implementations. And then we had an idea that majority of the trainings, especially soft trainings for the sales people, for managers, like all sorts of soft competences that you can come up with that are needed in big corporations, can be done. And quite often the clients want not to have avatars, but to have movies, VR movies. And that makes sense, because I'm still of a mind that even the best avatar will not sell what an actor could give you in a movie. And it will be more expensive to get a realistic avatar, and sometimes it won't be even displayable on VR goggles. So it's better to make a movie. We have a very good realistic effect. I mean, you can't be more realistic than the movie. And this brief is satisfied, which means we have interactive content, immersive, realistic, and quite quick, produced in a quite quick manner. We're able to produce a simple training session in a day. 10 minutes, let's say, and in a while we can make it interactive. I'll talk about it in a second. You do not have such an option in the world that in a week you would be able to create a VR application with the same amount of content, of meat inside, so to speak. So this is one thing. The other thing, to make this process better, because we know we want to make movies, but we want these movies to be more interactive. We want to combine these two worlds and we want to give the client the best of the two. So to have interactivity, and so that the user who sits in the goggles could click and could select something from the story. Of course, this is also not discovery of America, because this is also what is being done in the classical production, like normal 2D productions. Also in Film Spring, we did interactive movies. There was no VR yet, and there was no birds chirping about the VR yet. And in order to make things smoother, because we're very good in stereoscopy, and our 330 movies in large majority we did in 3D, because we know how to do it well, so we're not afraid of that. Then the holy grail of VR was 3D stereoscopy, was VR 180. And when finally, because 180 camera does not need stitching. In other words, the process of post-production, there is some post-production between the production and editing, but it's very, very simple. It's relatively simple because you have just two lenses which are fisheye, and which you just have to sort of reduce into the format that you can see here, to dewarp it, so to speak. And this is already viewable in goggles. You do not have this stitching of 6 cameras, combining all this and all the problems you get with that. And so we really wanted to do that. When only the first VR 180 cameras appeared, we bought them, we started to test them, we started to shoot with them, because we knew this will be great. People from the community who produce VR in Poland, they were sort of looking at us in disbelief that this is not fully immersive, this is not 130, 360, and they were a bit right, because for business clients, 360 degrees movie is a synonymous with VR. I mean, but they don't know 2D or 3D, or they saw some film on the YouTube, or they had some product at some point, and you had to convince them that you can do it otherwise. But I don't know a person, apart from some extreme cases, when this 360 degrees is really needed, because you need situational awareness, and you need to look around to see something, or to notice, to spot something. Apart from that, I do not know the case where we wouldn't be able to see 180 versus 360 and show how much it costs, one and the other, so that somebody would not go with 180. And here I have another remark, that unfortunately the majority of the projects that we have in Poland, the film likes, suffer from it. That people, there is a sort of a fetish of 360 degrees, and like those big cameras, which are not good for indoor shooting. The drawback of 360 degrees camera, like the multi-lens camera, is that you can't do close-ups. You cannot come up to it at a close distance. The safe distance from a camera to the foreground, I know I have a slide about this, but I want to tell it to you. It's about the foreground is about 2 meters from the cameras. In 180 degrees, you can come up to to a close-up of 20 centimeters, and you have a great experience out of that. It's not comfortable after a while, not because the camera has technological limitations, but you're transgressing the intimacy barrier, and people want to move back. It's like a safe space. Nobody talks to you from the. It's a bit creepy, and it is creepy in goggles if somebody is so close to you. And if you want to get that effect, of course you can do it. But there's also another problem, because if something is in great close-up for a very long time, it's what I said. The eyes would like to converge to this object, and they look in parallel into the distance, into a lens. You get this feeling of distance. So the Meta has those prototypes when those lenses are physically moving, and this is called varifocal. So the closer things are, And I think it's eye tracking, which sees that your eyes converge and your lens is moving in, and it is pretty fast, and it will be an interesting thing. It's not available anymore, but it's uncomfortable right now. So if you want, there is no this feeling of dispersion when you approaching the camera. So if you have an immersive storytelling or a training, if you want to show another person in a close-up, it's a great thing. And in 360 you can do it, because really it would be a pain in the ass to later edit it. Visual representation of this. The question was, can you edit it with the goggles on your head? Yes, you can do it, of course, to a certain extent. Premiere Pro allows you to attach the goggles, to connect the goggles to the Premiere and live view in the goggles. This is great. This is great stuff. You can just you can't do it all the time, because that would be not comfortable. But if you have some problematic part, you want to see what it looks like in the goggles, you put on the goggles, you take them off, and you move on. Also stereo. After Effects also had that, and I think it was even more necessary there. It is not post-production workshop, because we could sit here for 4 hours and talk about post-production alone, about some extreme cases. However, in After Effects, when you want to delete something, erase something, make a mask, this is especially needed in stereo, because if you make something in one eye, it has to correspond with a mask in the other eye. If there's some misalignment, then in stereo it really gets out in the depth of field. So it's good. Unfortunately, they deleted that, they scrapped that, and that's a pity. There's also a very professional stitching software and initial post-production stereo. It's called Mystica VR, and it also has preview, and there's an application dedicated to goggles. It's a bit quirky. I had a very difficult project where I really needed that preview, because I did a reversed thing. I was shooting 180 to have the best quality resolution and have a close-up with the camera, but the requirement of the client was, because it was a training for the police force, that this situation awareness was there, and 180 we moved them around and we stitched 360 out of 2 180s. So a totally uncalibrated rig. Everything had to be done by hand, and Mystica allowed for that. And were it not for the fact that there's a live preview when you can quickly see the effects of what you did, whether it works well in stereo or not, that would not be possible to pull off. And also it's very good that you can put 180 on the drone, on the gimbal, or whatever. It's 360. You theoretically can do it, but it doesn't make sense. No, it's just a normal gimbal. It's just attached to a guy, to the helmet. Higher resolution in 180. If goggles are able to shoot a maximum 8K, so if you have 8K, so in 360 the 8K is all around you. In 180 the 8K is just in front of you, and this increases the density of pixels. You have a better image, and we still have the whole field of view covered, and even more, because the goggles are the consumer goggles usually have 110 degrees altogether. This image is much more comfortable, because from the technical point of view and all those problems in 360 which make it less comfortable, is that we simulate the in 180 we simulate the natural human sensor apparatus, so to speak. You also have a comparison. Oh, that's a very good question. Did we try to use AI to supplement the sort of missing dust in 360? No. So the back end 360. No, we didn't try this yet. No, because the algorithms do not understand the distortion, the VR distortion. As you can see here, on the poles, the image is warped a lot. And truth be told, I'm not a specialist in AI. And also, we do not need to to complement that with AI, because we can always make a plate. JPEG. This training project, I said, it works in such a way that we have 180 movie in front, and in the back we have a JPEG plate, and in application you have seamless movement between JPEG and movie, and we render only the front. Because if we try to render the whole movie, we come back to the same point of view. To the same point of departure. This would not be applicable to the goggles, which are just too weak. This is a very good position. You can see that here when the hand is moving towards the camera, because the hand is between two cameras, and in 180 degrees this is no problem. And this is another problem, that depth maps can be generated automatically or semi-automatically, but I don't think there are dedicated things for VR where you would have 360 or 180 generated. But I might not have the necessary knowledge, because this is not my forte. I don't want to bore you with details. I want very quickly to move the glue. We have 15 minutes left to tell you what this lecture is about. In order to make the things faster, we made this. And this is the most important of all the things that we've done. This is our editor, online activity editor. I stood up, so it means it's really important. This is still pretty ugly. We're working on the 2.0 version. We will implement it by the end of this year. I would really like to show you the XD screens from Adobe. But the changes are just aesthetic, and this is how the system works. It's a nodal system, and we're creating in this editor of ours a node. People who are working on Adobe, you know what it's all about with nodes. And we have a section here related to the movie, because we're basing on the movies this element of the linear movie, which is running from the beginning to the end. We have it. This film stops. I'm not giving you. I will not talk about the details. There's plenty of settings. What sort of movie it is? Where is the start? Where is the finish? Where it stops? We enter a question or a statement or some prompt to interact. It doesn't matter. We call it a query for the needs of our presentation, and we add answers. And these answers are selections. These do not have to be answers to questions. There can be plenty of them. We can give points to them. So because the system was prepared to train, to educate, and the evaluation of progress of the user is very important. And we can combine it with the next sequence. It's a similar sequence, but it's collapsed just to save space. We can make some color coding. That this is the right answer. This is for example, green is the right answer. The red one is the bad answer, of course. And now, basing on this, you can create very interesting things. This interactive storytelling, you can see it visually that it's a graph. It's a spider that is networking out. It's forking out. It's very, very dense. I don't want to analyze it, but we have here the same thing. The first sequence, 3 answers, going to 3 possible selections: the good, the mediocre, and the bad, and each one is connected with the next one, and you can go like this indefinitely. You can make loops and graphs. This is one of the projects. I don't remember which one. I think the one where you have to sell coffee to a client, and the client does not drink coffee, but she wants to buy coffee for her office. So it's very difficult. The discussion with her is very difficult. A standard case in trainings in corporations is a difficult customer, which or who's very demanding or aggressive, and you have to de-escalate the conflict and to get disposed of this client in a civilized manner. It's very difficult to sell them the coffee. More of the answers are directed towards the bad than you are guided towards the good one. We have voice recognition. You can provide a time code, but you don't have to. The question was, can we provide a time code? If you leave 0 and 0 frame and stop frame 0, the application runs the whole clip, the whole movie. If you have one long movie, divide it because you do not have to render a billion of clips. You can provide frames, start and stop, and then in one clip you show in every sequence. On top of this, you have an application, of course, Google application, which connects with that with the backend, with the because you can invite users, you can apply authorizations to them. For us, the most important thing, of course, is the training part, because you can create VR content without any knowledge of code. You don't need to write a line of code. If you know how to click things, it's pretty intuitive. It doesn't maybe look in an interesting way when you show this spider, but this is all described. So we produce a movie, we put it in the system. The film has to be produced in a code according to an interactive script. It cannot be a linear film, because then we can only make a quiz at the end or somewhere in the middle. There's an application where we log in. We have content that the administrator ascribed to us, and then we go through the script, and the points that we get will be sent to the system so that the evaluator can see how we manage. It's very interesting to make this interactive script in Miro. I don't know if you know it. I'm using it only for this, but it's very good for collabs where several users at the same time are working on a presentation. It's a great stuff. It's good that you've managed to come, because I didn't put on the goggles and I didn't destroy my hairdo. I don't know if you know, but I really worked on my hair today in the morning. The first part, you're creating an interactive script. By force, it's different from this traditional script, because you can have many motifs. You have to put that into this tree, and you have to think about it at all times. If you give the possibility to the viewer to jump between the motifs, the streams. And there's also, unfortunately, this is very unsatisfying for the author of the script. There's a lot of unnecessary stuff. So which means that when I'm in VR and I'm going through this script, I have only one path. I can, of course, retrace it, but it's still linear. There are plenty of things that I have to omit. This is what interactivity is about. That there are motives that probably I might not even know that they are there when I finish this material. The production, it's nothing special. Apart from the fact that it's very difficult later to add extra shots. If you have an actor who is to say, we in VR, we see this sort of table with the answers. We select answer A, and the reaction is clip A. The actor says something. If we select B, it's something different, and C is a different shot of the different clip of a person who stands in the same place and makes up sort of. There will always be a jump there, because these have to be three different shots, of course. So only if we have a prompt and we can move from one sequence to the other. For the second and third and fourth answer, we would have a jump because it's a different clip. So it's very important, because if we forget about something in this interactive script, it's very difficult to get back to the set, to put everything in the same place, and you have to put up some voiceovers, some splash pages. It's doable, but it's much more difficult than in the traditional movie. And then we put it in the system, we upload it, and then we sort of transfer this original idea of ours in Miro or in Excel or whatever you did this. You can sort of do it on a piece of paper. I love to scribble on the piece of paper and link things, and then you recreate the structure in the system. Soft skills, education. You have there the aspect. You have the aspect on checking the progression and all sorts of quirks and artistic experiments. I would also encourage you to reach out to us, because we provide that for free for some projects. If it inspires us, we like collaborations with NGOs and artists. If you have some sort of the more crazy your idea is, the better for us, the more interested we are. We made some interesting workshops in Uniwersytet Jagielloński. There were 5 interactive projects on this system, and these were people who had no idea about VR. They were just related to the culture, like a cultural industry, so to speak, if I can use that word. We wanted to use that in cultural heritage, 5 projects. Each one was different from the scratch. They learned what this interactive storytelling is about. They shot it. They put that into the system under our mentoring, of course. But from certain point, it started to work. And I won't show you the making of because we're really short on time. I wanted to tell you more about a few more projects. The other one was not for the NGO. Oh, by the way, nice merge for Justitia. I don't know. I don't know if this is legal from the point of view of the elections today. For young, with Justitia, we created an application for young judges, which allow to simulate difficult situations, especially for a young judge, about which they heard but they've never encountered. They only encounter it in the courtroom, and this procedure is there, but you don't know how to implement it if you have no experience. So, for example, we have a witness who's drunk, and they say they're sober, and somebody's under the influence of marijuana. He says that it's medical marijuana, but he has no documents for that. They have like they have volumes and volumes of funny cases that I cannot quote, unfortunately. But when you listen to what people are doing in a courtroom, it's just crazy. I don't know if you can behave in such a way. A very interesting educative project. It's a training for the lawyers, but also for different events. This is Poland Rock. This is a Poland Rock footage. You can show people how to behave, how not to behave, what you can expect. And who do you write the script with? This script. The question was, who creates this script? This script was created by the judges. Of course, we help them to do it in a way that it makes sense interactively, but we don't know anything about the content. It's them. This is a good case to show that people who have no experience with VR or almost no experience in production of any sort of multimedia are able to deal with it and make an interactive training experience. Our assumption is that our internal processor should be optimized. I know how to make a clip. I know how to make a training because I do not need a software designer to generate 70% of the costs in my project. But also our client theoretically can do it by themselves after some introductory training. We have one client like this. This is insurance, where I think the tender was just for interactive training but of course we showed everything we had, and they said, wow, so yeah, we don't want a movie from you, we want this because we will make movies for ourselves. And initially and we want to earn money on those movies. This is why we applied to you. On the other hand, look how it validated the system and this business model when it gives them such tools that they don't need us anymore, because they would need us only when something goes wrong, or when knock wood, or they would want to add some function. This is a Justitia training. It's not very interactive, and I don't know. It's maybe there is certain logic of lawyers. I don't know. But the more interesting project from the point of view of interactivity is the project. I think the last one that I'm showing you. This is a project that we did with the foundation Alter Edu. The Alter Edu Foundation. They have a school, but they also deal with kids on the spectrum, on the autism spectrum, with Asperger syndrome and difficult background. These are psychologists, and in Poland it's called the social skills training. It's like you learn assertiveness, soft skills, especially now when you have so many fakes and sexting and cyberbullying, and this is a very important topic. It always was important topic, but it's especially important right now. And it consists in, there's an interactive movie, a day of life in school of a protagonist who sort of faces a number of challenges, and you never can finish it like 100% positive, because either your hobby suffers because on that day you planned something, or you have a friend who expects something from us, or a colleague, and there's a task we have to do at the end. We can get reprimanded by the teacher. So there's always something is always wrong, and then it's to discuss your choices with a psychologist during the final discussion. You know what? We have 2 minutes. I will not be able to connect the goggles to show that to you. I wanted to add the streaming to the goggle, show you the streaming on the goggles, but I really invite you to meet me in the editing room and see that on the goggles. Right now I have a moment of break, and we're going to the election. Today is a crazy day because we have the final of hackathon, so this is not the best day for this, but starting tomorrow I'm at your disposal since early morning. You can meet me at editing room starting 10 a.m. and you can compare it, see how it works in the system and in the goggles. Go and vote, especially the French guys. Go and vote. Thank you.